Good evening, everyone. Apologize for running a little bit late tonight. We had a long presentation during the workshop. I want to welcome everyone to tonight's regularly called meeting of the Temple City Council. It's currently about 5:15. Please rise as Deputy City Secretary Liz Caraway leads us in the invocation, followed by our pledge, which will be led by City Secretary Jana Llewellyn.
Dear Heavenly Father, as we come to the end of another year, for so many of us, it is a time of reflection, a time to look back over the past 12 months and evaluate what was successful, as well as those things we need to improve, and also a time to give thanks to you, God, for your goodness and mercy. With 2023 drawing to a close, we think about the blessings and challenges of the past year. We praise you for protecting us, empowering us to be your hands and feet in this world, and thank you for placing people in our lives to walk with through the storms. Father God, thank you for our leaders, and especially as we end one year and begin another, thank you for the ability of time to be able to consider the past year and see decisions, visions, and hard work come to life through the progress, unity, and development across our city. Thank you for giving our leaders, from city council to city management, and throughout all staff across the city, the courage to speak the truth, for guiding them in being servant leaders, helping them be known for their positive participation in our local government, and using them to meet the needs of those around them. It is my prayer for them in the coming year to stay the course and focus on those needs within our city, even through tough decision making, lead them to excellence for the better of the entire community. Now, as memories of 2023 are just that, we look forward to a new year. I pray for guidance and wisdom, commitment to plans, humbleness and courage to ask for directions when needed. Lord, bless our city in the new year. Though the days, weeks, and months pass quickly, may the years of good and fruitful work happening in our city continue to be a shining testament of this council and these city leaders for years to come. As we are in the heart of the holidays, help us to simplify our activities, to slow down the daily hustle, and instead focus on goodness. May the spirit of Christmas togetherness and selfless giving extend all year long, not just through a passing season. I pray tonight for joy in all of our hearts, hope in mankind, love to forgive, and finally, peace on earth this Christmas and through the new year. It's in your name I pray. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ladies. Next item is public comments. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may do so. We simply ask that you step to the podium and state your name. Please understand that no discussion will be had during the public comment period. And also, we ask that you please keep your comments to 3 minutes. You see there's timers, or there will be timers on the screen shown. So first, Miss Bobby Thompson. Bobby, it's good to see you. It's been a while. Call me up. I'm your guy.
Oh, Bobby Thompson, 904 South Henderson Street, Mayor Davis, Ms. Grant, our District 2 Councilwoman, and other council members. I'm glad to be here tonight. Keep the new homes coming in East Temple, especially on my street. I wish Chester could be here to see this. It makes the whole neighborhood look great, and I'm looking for more streetlights to come soon. The city of Temple is growing in leaps and bounds, and I'm looking for more progress in 2024. Congratulations, Ms. Myers and Ms. Grant. Y'all are the women that's going forward on the move to help the world. So after the meeting tonight, I would like to have both of you all autographed. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Bobby. see you again. Merry Christmas. Oh, yes, please, of course.
Miss Bobby. Birthday coming up on the 26th, 71 years old. Let me sing to you. She said, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. God bless you. Happy birthday to you. And many more.
I should have saved that.
I know. Too good.
I was just right up.
Should have saved that public comment for the last one. Dan Kaser, you're up.
My name's Dan Kaser. And I live at 1304 North First Street. And several years ago, I went through the entire permitting process, 6 weeks back and forth with the planning division permitting, and they issued a permit for me to move in a building duplex, and both the moving and the remodel permit. And did everything I was supposed to do. I moved it over there, set it down. And in the meantime, I'd had 2 buildings in my backyard. And at one of these council meetings afterwards, Mr. Chandler and Lynn Barrett came up on either side of me, said, those buildings got to go. And I said, well, those buildings are legal. And the last thing they said, you're going to see what the city can do to you. So I put that building was already set down over the duplex. I've got a lot of money in it, a lot of money in the lot. And all of a sudden I went to get I'd set it down. I went to get a second inspection on the frame, and they said, we're revoking your permit. And now the only one that really told the truth, Buford Craig, said, we're revoking it. I mean, because you didn't get the buildings out of your backyard, which are there legally, I should say. And so this went on, and the building is appraised, or not appraised, it's insured for $150,000. All the other builders in the area have looked at that and said, what's the problem? This thing is better built than anything that's been built here. And so now it's gone on and on. And so I suppose they're trying to use, it appears they're trying to use the code enforcement, city attorney's office, and the municipal court to try to do an unlawful taking, constitutional taking, because now they've started filing criminal charges on me. They filed criminal charges. Somebody had kicked in the doors. I put them back, and so then they came up and they issued these summons and saying, well, you worked on it. Well, I put the doors back up to keep people out of it. I've got a right to protect my property. I went to 2 jury trials on that. Not guilty, not guilty. Now I've got more summons, and they're basically double jeopardy, same old, because they said that he put a stop work order because there wasn't a permit. And I have the permits in the window. And so now I'm being charged with moving a building without a permit, even though the permit's in the window. And the buildings, they said, well, we made a mistake. Well, the way I look at it, I was 100% transparent. I answered every question. They had all the pictures, and they've, now I'm sitting here facing 2 more charges in the city court, criminal charges. 1, moving without a permit, even though the permit's in the window, and 2, they're saying, well, that's an accessory building. Well, it wasn't an accessory building when you issued the permit. And the city's out of control. The code enforcement, they're using it to badger people, and it's official oppression using the underneath the city code enforcement. And so the council needs to do a review, maybe Ms. Myers, maybe whoever's in charge needs to rein in the city attorney's office and the code enforcement and, you know, get this in check because that's 100% lawful. I'm being punished. I've got $90,000 into it. I put that there relying on that permit and it's done everything I did perfectly according to the permit. And now here I am, I've lost, you know, several years of rent on the duplex. And now I'm being faced with criminal charges. I get a thing from code enforcement said the only solution, you gotta get that building out of town. You know, they're running me out of town. And nobody's ever articulated anything. I mean, I think that somebody at the city attorney's office mistakenly said, well, that's an industrialized building, which is a lie. It's not. It's in the code what an industrialized building is, and that's not one. And so I'm just saying, the city, you know, I'm just asking that y'all rein it in. I mean, Jessica, I guess, is my council member up there. I don't know who's has the one over there at 912, you know, south, or, you know, the 900 block or of 6th Street, South 6th Street. But, you know, they have it. Okay. Well, and you've seen, I think you've seen the building. And, you know, there's nothing articulated. I said, well, meet me over there and let's look at it. You tell me what's wrong because every builder has said there's nothing wrong. And so y'all might want to look for a new city attorney.
Are you checking your time, Dan?
I'm not checking my time, but I'm just,
Your time has been up for a little bit. I'll let
Okay.
you finish. I'm not, is that it? You finished?
well, I just, you know, just wondering what's going on, who to address this to. I mean, I'm fixing to go before the city court again, facing several $1,000s worth of fines over relying on, you know, Brian. I went through Brian Chandler, Lynn Barrett, Nancy Whetstone, all of them. They issued that freaking permit and I did not misrepresent anything.
Okay.
And so if the best our city attorney can come up calling something industrial building that isn't.
We'll look into it.
They need to resign.
You'll have a response back from the city attorney's office.
Okay.
All right? You want to now?
Oh, no, if he's correct, it's in the court system and that's the appropriate place to handle it. Not in-
Well, it's not in the court system.
Dan.
The court system due process. It's
Dan.
It's a district court taking, constitutional taking. It's property, it's real estate. You don't do it in the city court.
All right, thank you. Next is CJ Grisham.
CJ Grisham, I'm a citizen of Temple, and you know, since becoming a civil rights attorney, it's really opened my eyes. I travel the entire state, and so one of the first things I want to do is start off with a positive. Going to other city councils, other courts, other counties makes me love you guys a lot more. Now, I don't know if that means you're really good or everyone else is just really, really bad, but
Little of both.
yeah, either way, it really makes me appreciate the city that I live because, I've been exposed and seen a lot of what I would consider government overreach just in my own personal experiences. And it's been a little disappointing since becoming an attorney and representing clients, what a widespread problem this is. I represent Dan. We just hired me because I have seen this across the entire state where code enforcement is being weaponized. And it seems that lately it's gotten worse. And I'm not talking about just here, but after hearing Dan's story, I realize we've got a problem here as well. And I'm not sure that the city is aware of what's going on. But if you are somebody who is outspoken, you can guarantee throughout this state that code enforcement is going to find you and they're going to find something. And literally every code enforcement case that I've taken, I've gotten dismissed because the code enforcement doesn't understand the code. And we're running people through having to hire attorneys for things that they shouldn't have to hire attorneys for because our code enforcement is ignorant about words. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean ignorant in the literal sense of they don't know what they're talking about. And that's a problem because guys like Dan and others around the state that I represent do everything they can to get stuff done the right way. He got all the permits, did everything. He relied on this city's promise when they issued a permit that he could move this building and spent detrimentally to his reliance, on that reliance, over $90,000 to get that building moved. Now he's being told that he can't get other permits. And oh, by the way, now you got to move it again, get rid of it. That is not how a city should be treating its citizens. And fining them thousands of dollars, forcing them to hire attorneys. Well, I'm not getting paid thousands of dollars, but even if it was $1, that's $1 you could have bought a soda with. And so I would ask that the city council, city manager, crack down on this code enforcement, see what's going on, because it's being enforced. And by the way, as I was coming in, another citizen that was leaving that I knew, ironically, even though I wasn't here for him, I was like, hey, what are you here for? He says, oh, I got this code enforcement thing. And I was like, what's it for? He says, oh, a vehicle in my yard. And it's a wagon. It's a decorative wagon. That is not a vehicle. That is not a trailer. And now he's got to go and fight this. And so he asked me if I'd take that one. So we've got a problem. I really don't want Temple to start ending up in like places like Aransas Pass, where I spend way too much time fighting code enforcement. And so I trust that those of you up there on the dais will address this issue because it's pretty widespread. Thank you.
Thank you, CJ. It's been a while since we've seen you too. Merry Christmas. David Carter.
I looked up the properties that Dan Kaiser owns. He's got a whole page of properties. This is not a one-off thing where he's just ignorant of the law and procedures. He's been doing this for a long time. He was found not guilty in municipal court a few months ago. And it looks to me like they're bringing similar charges. I haven't seen them, but this is improper double jeopardy. They're just trying to get even, it looks to me like. Okay, I'm just wondering if there's a process of arbitration instead of going straight to criminal charges and trial by jury. Perhaps the city council could consult with your employees, the city attorney's office and the city manager and the code enforcement people, and see if they can't resolve this outside of a court criminal proceeding. I would ask you to consider that. So what is your budget for defending the city against criminal charges? In the penal code, I've handed it out to you. In the very first section of the penal code, it says subsections 4 and 5 is to safeguard conduct that is without guilt, clearly Dan Kaiser, from condemnation as criminal, and to guide and limit the exercise of official discretion in enforcement to, and this is an important word, to prevent arbitrary or oppressive treatment of persons suspected or accused. And that's an issue here. It's a criminal offense for the city employees to engage in that, to violate those things. Now, under the section 39-03 official oppression, number 2, intentionally denies or impedes another in the exercise or enjoyment of any right. Now, Mr. Kaiser had the right to move those buildings and to work on them. And for some reasons unknown and not brought out in the trial, which I was really concerned about, was how come the city can't find their copy of the permits? But to me, that smacks of destroying evidence or concealing exculpatory information that could have helped him. He didn't need the help. It was very clear that this was an unwarranted charge in the case that he was acquitted in. So intentionally denies or impedes another in the exercise or enjoyment of any right, knowing his conduct is unlawful. So I ask you to look into this and help us to make Temple a nice place where people want to live, just like all the banners in your promotional material. Thank you.
Carter. All right, moving on to the next item is the administration of the oath of I'm sorry, the administration of the oath of office to Kathleen Person.
Hello. All right, I want to thank everybody for coming, and I have fortunately been asked, it's kind of at the last minute, but I'm happy to do it, to swear in Kathleen Person. I've known her for going on, I was gonna say almost 30, so 25. I like the sound of that better because it makes me sound a little bit younger than otherwise. So it is my pleasure to be here to do this for her today. So if you could raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Kathleen Person,
Do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that you will faithfully execute the duties of the office
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office
of municipal court record judge
of municipal court record judge
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will do my best of my ability to preserve,
and will, to the best of my ability, preserve,
protect, and defend
protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
in this state.
and the state.
So help you God.
So help me God.
There you go. Thank you.
Congratulations, Judge. Very good. Next item is to award the Merry and Bright Holiday Light Tour winner. I think that might be them in the back. The City of Temple had the honor of hosting the second annual Merry and Bright Holiday Light Tour and Contest this year. 30 homes participated in the contest portion of the event, and we're very grateful that all the participants and residents have chosen to take part in this event and help spread the holiday cheer throughout the city. 1,981 votes were submitted, and with the winner receiving 350 of those votes. We have the winner present today with us, and I would like to present the City of Temple Merry and Bright Holiday Lights Contest Brightest Bulb in the Bunch Award it was stop number 24.
Yep.
The address was, do you want me to give your address? I guess so, if you put it, if you enter the contest. 6-1.
On the link and go look for yourself.
Yeah, okay. Decorated by Jake, is it Mellott? Malott? Very good. Heather and Hoover, well, y'all come on down. You don't have to stand in the back. Right up here. And two little elves.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, cool. Thanks.
That's kind of weird. Let me go down there. That's better than having a floating head above. Take some of the weight up.
Y'all should click on the link though and go see all the houses. It's pretty cool. We saw, I think, all 30. We drove by every house.
How long did it take y'all to decorate yours?
I'm still working on it today.
This is a long time. He won with to have it done.
Congratulations.
Thank y'all. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Next year, I'll see you again.
There you go. If you lose next year.
Good job, guys.
All right, next item is the recognition of the 2023 Corporate Challenge winners. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm excited to be here tonight to announce your winners of the 2023 Corporate Challenge Program. This is the 12th consecutive year for the Corporate Challenge, and this program ran from September 4th all the way till October 22nd and brought together 25 different companies in our community who competed in 13 different sporting events. This year, we had a total of 2,473 participants, 279 of which were City of Temple employees. And this was an increase of 343 people in the challenge this year. So we're excited to see it grow. This year, companies were divided between Division 1, and that included companies with greater than 160 employees, and Division 2, so companies with less than 160 employees. Based on internal and external feedback, we're actually looking to create another division next year to help kind of accommodate that growing, the growing program. Before announcing the winners, I wanted to give a huge shout out to our fantastic athletics and Summit Recreation Center staff for putting together these events and all the different programs throughout, many of which fell outside of the normal 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, which as Parks and Recreation people, we don't really know what that 8 to 5 is anyway. So, but we're still excited for everyone. So Tracy Klusacek, from athletics, and Sarah Fowler from the Summit were the leads in their divisions, and we're glad to have them on our team. Without further ado, we can see where our winners are. For Division 1, in third place, we had PDI Technologies with 397 total points. In second place, last year's winners was Texel Credit Union with a total of 431 points. And our first place and last year's runner-up was the City of Temple with a total of 618 points.
Sounds like a setup.
Mayor, would you come down and accept the award on our behalf, please?
If there's any employees that were participating, feel free to come down as well.
You know what?
Thank you. And for Division 2, in third place, there was ALM EOS with a total of 395 points. Second place was Stratasys Direct Manufacturing with a total of 506 points. And in first place, MTC with a total of 512 points. Accepting for MTC is Bill Warren. And we'd like to invite MTC and any employees they might have. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your support of this program and the Parks Department.
All right, next item is the consent agenda. All items that are listed under this section are considered to be routine by the city council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by any council member about a specific item, that item can be removed and considered for a separate vote. Council, unless things have changed during workshop, we decided nothing would be pulled and nothing needed further discussion. Is that still correct? All right. Then at this time, council, I will entertain a motion on item number 6.
I move to approve item number 6, A through X as presented.
Second that motion, Mayor.
We have a motion by Councilmember Pilkington. We have a second by Councilmember Long. Council, please cast your vote. Item 6, which was the consent agenda, item 6A through 6X passes 5 votes to 0. Item 7 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance approving a request for rezoning from ag to planned development with single-family attached dwellings 3 and general retail and a development or site plan on 29.515 plus or minus acres on the west side of South Kegley Road, identified as property ID 135280 and 135281, and addressed as 340 and 480 South Kegley Road in the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas. Mr. Chandler.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. And the applicant is Republic Engineering and Development Services. And so just to orient you to the site, it's 29.5 acres on the west side of Kegley, just to the south of other development there at the hard corner of Adams and Kegley. And so to the right, you can see a site plan that includes 27.4 acres of single family attached. The applicant is proposing 175 dwelling units as townhomes. It includes open space, also includes a section of 2.05 acres. You can see in the pink of general retail. And so the site plan also indicates proposed street locations, trails, sidewalks, alley access as well, and the green open space and trails. And then, of course, Pepper Creek is on the west side. It is floodplain, but they're also proposing to help with the implementation of our Trails Master Plan and extend the Pepper Creek Trail. And so mention Pepper Creek, you can see the flood hazard zones. And so the crosshatched area on the left, kind of the grayish and light blue, that is floodway, which really can't do anything in a floodway without FEMA approval. However, the 100-year floodplain is shown in kind of the aqua, and through our city engineer's office, a development plan could be a floodplain development permit, I should say, could be approved. However, they're not proposing any buildings in that location. And so just to show you the site, and starting with a Encore substation. And then in the bottom, you can see the villages of Pepper Creek that are multifamily that are currently under construction. And then in terms of the surrounding uses and zoning, of course, it's zoned agriculture now, but to the north, multifamily 2 with planned development. Of course, that is the villages of Pepper Creek. Cropland to the west, homes on acreage to the south, Wildflower Country Club on the other side of Kegley, the Encore substation that we mentioned, basically surrounded by this property along Kegley, and then nearby commercial zoning to the north. So when we look at compliance with particularly the thoroughfare plan and also Trails Master Plan, you can see a community collector per the thoroughfare plan that bisects the property. And so one item that they're asking for an exception for that we actually support is to relocate that collector to the south to optimize the distance from Adams, but also working with a developer to the south who has a project in the works that is projected to come before you all within the next month or two. And then also looking at the parks and trails, the site plan does show trails in the open space and near the floodplain. Park amenities would include benches, playscape, pickleball court. But all those amenities would be confirmed at the plat stage. Those are just examples of what they're looking at. Thank you. All right, so looking at the mobility review and the mobility master plan specifically. So Kegley is a minor arterial. So a 2 to 4 lane minor arterial, a typical capacity is 12,000 to 24,000 daily trips. The current volume, which you can see up basically at the Adams intersection or just south of it, 5,237 daily trips. And so then when we look at the number of the Institute of Transportation Engineers and their trip generation ratios attached or townhomes, the number they're proposing would generate 1,260 daily trips. And of course, that is up and back. Each of those is a trip. And then typical retail uses for the neighborhood serving retail that they're proposing. These are just some examples, such as daycare, 276 daily trips, a restaurant. This is a restaurant without a drive-through, 643 trips, a donut shop, 1,500 trips. So obviously on the higher end of trip generation. Next slide, please. And then also looking at the future land use plan from our comprehensive plan. This area is part corridor mixed use, which you can see in the pink, but also you can see the part of the circle at the intersection of Kegley and Adams is a mixed use activity center. And so both of these encourage a mix of residential and retail and walkability, which is what these developers and design professionals are proposing. There's also a section of residential and neighborhood services, which does allow for townhomes at strategic locations, but also, once again, encouraging walkability, connections to trails and open space as well. So 12 notices were sent to property owners within 200 feet. And to date, we have received 0 return notices from nearby property owners. Newspaper printed notice on November 28th. And so staff recommends approval of the request for the plan development single family attached 3 and the general retail per the site plan. And so this isn't all of the conditions, and so I'll spare you going through all of them, but these are just kind of the highlights. This single family attached 3 and the general retail with a minimum of 25% set aside for open space and associated parking if they have private parks with some parking included. Approval of a binding development site plan that we looked at. 2 alternate entrances. Those are widened entrances for mainly for fire access, but also giving additional opportunities for turning movements out of the subdivision. Requiring a subdivision plat and approval of the thoroughfare plan exception that we mentioned before. Amenities to be constructed in open space, which would certainly include a greenway trail, but the other amenities would be addressed at platting. Attached homes with alley access and reduced setbacks as shown in the site plan. Privacy fence surrounding the substation. Sidewalks as required in the site plan. The general retail site plan review that would come back to city council for 2.05 acres. Restaurant with a drive-through. However, the applicant has agreed that if a drive-through is proposed, they would also have a walk-up window and outdoor seating, so it's not just a drive-through. And then last but not least, certain uses prohibited, including gas station, dance hall, hotel, equipment rental, or any commercial, industrial, transportation, or vehicle sales or service uses. And these were all agreed upon by the applicant. And at the December 5th meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended unanimous approval by a vote of 5-0. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Council, any questions for Mr. Chandler? Okay. Item 7 is subject to a public hearing. We ask anyone that wishes to speak on the public hearing, please step to the microphone and state your name for the record. Anyone? Anyone on the virtual platform? Nothing? All right, very good. Then there being no one wishing to speak, I will close the public hearing and council. If there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion on item number 7.
Make a motion to approve item 7.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Walker. We have a second by Councilmember Long. Council, please cast your vote. Item 7 passes 5 votes to 0. Item 8 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance approving a rezoning from ag to neighborhood services on 0.746 plus or minus acres in the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, addressed as 4790 State Highway 317. Mr. Chandler.
All right, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. All right, thank you. And so this property is close to our southern city limits boundary, close to the river, but on the west side of State Highway 317. This is an existing single-family residential building, but they're proposing to convert it to a neighborhood service use. And so here you can see the building and the main structure, and then a garage on the property. It's 0.79 acres. And so property to the north, and then the property on the other side of 317. And so the proposed use is an office for mental health therapy and social work, which is allowed in neighborhood service. And so they want that flexibility for office, perhaps future limited retail and personal service as well. And so with site development, on-site parking, paved driveway would be addressed, and then screening from the ag zoned property to the north. And in our comprehensive plan, this section of 317 is shown as future corridor mixed use. And so the thoroughfare plan also identifies State Highway 317 as a major arterial, and so certainly appropriate for this non-residential use and zoning within that corridor. Trails master plan does identify a connector trail, but on the east side of 317, which we constructed with TxDOT, but in partnership with us, we helped fund the oversizing of that sidewalk when 317 was improved several years ago. However, major arterial does require sidewalk on both sides. So upon future development of this site, a sidewalk would be required on adjacent to this property as well. In terms of the mobility master plan compliance, no conflict was identified with the plan. Public notice printed in the newspaper on November 22nd, and 6 notices were mailed out to property owners within 200 feet, and no responses have been received. Staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval. Their recommendation was at their December 5th meeting. 5-0 is the vote, and happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
Thank you. Council, anything for Mr. Chandler? Item 8 is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak, we ask that you step to the podium and state your name for the record or raise your hand on the platform. No? No one from the audience either? All right, very good. Council, if there's nothing else, then I'll entertain a motion on item 8.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Grant. We have a second by Councilmember Pilkington. Council, please cast your vote. Item 8 passes 5 votes to 0. Item 9 is the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance amending the PD ordinance 2004-3970 to allow minor vehicle servicing on approximately 1.305 acres located at the southeast corner of FM 93 and DeBose Road in the city of Temple, Bell County. Address is 3675 West FM 93. Mr. Chandler.
Mayor, actually, before Mr. Chandler gives his presentation, if I may just address some of the confusion that has resulted in taking this item back to P and Z, which is a bit unusual, and I just wanted to clarify what happened.
Yep.
Okay, next slide, please. So in the Unified Development Code, we have a requirement that our Planning and Zoning Commission must review and make a recommendation on most of our development review procedures, including zoning changes and plan developments, which are this case before you tonight is a plan development amendment. Based on parliamentary procedure, in order to make a recommendation, a majority of the commission members that are present at the meeting where the item is considered must vote in favor of a motion that either recommends approval or recommends disapproval of the development review item that they're considering. Next slide, please. So this item was originally considered at the December 5th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. At that meeting, there were 5 of the 9 commissioners present. A public hearing was held at that meeting. At that meeting, there was a motion made to recommend approval to the city council, but the motion failed. So only 2 commissioners voted in favor of that motion and 3 voted against it. And then that was the only motion that was made that night on that item. A motion to recommend disapproval to the city council was not made. And I know that that's a bit confusing and it's a little bit nuanced, but a motion to recommend, voting against a motion to recommend approval is not the equivalent of voting in favor of disapproving an item. And in many cases, the person making that vote would vote against, would vote to disapprove an item, but there are certain cases where that's not true. So for example, someone may be against the item on the table, but would consider voting for it if changes were made or tweaks were made to the item. So parliamentary procedure is very clear in that it really seeks clarity in that you have to vote in favor of disapproving it, not just against approving it. So next slide, please. So we have an internal staff meeting the week before our council meetings to prepare for council meetings. And it was at that time during our discussion and preparation on this item that I realized that because we had a motion that failed, but no motion that actually passed, that no recommendation to the city council was actually made by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their December 5th meeting. And so I visited with Kathy and Kyle about that, and we took a close look at the local government code and the Unified Development Code. And because the Unified Development Code requires that the P&Z make a recommendation to you, and technically no recommendation was made in December at the December 5th meeting, I made the decision that we needed to send that back to the Planning and Zoning Commission in order for them to actually have an opportunity to make a recommendation. They did have a meeting already scheduled that was before this meeting, so we were able to get that on the December 18th meeting, if you'll go to the next slide. And so the item was reconsidered then. At that meeting, there were 6 of the 9 commissioners present. We did not have a second public hearing at that meeting, but we did have an opportunity for public comments as we do at every meeting at the beginning of the agenda. Brian tells me that we didn't have any comments made during the public comment section, but we did make it clear that that would be the opportunity for anyone attending to speak on the item, any resident that wanted to make comments about that to speak on the item in public comment, since we weren't posted for a public hearing. And so, excuse me, at that meeting, there was another motion made to recommend approval to the city council. And that motion ended up passing with 5 of the commissioners voting in favor and 1 voting against. Next slide, please. So you can see that one of the members who voted against the item at the December 5th meeting was absent at the December 8th meeting. And one of the members that voted against it at December 5th actually voted in favor of it on December 18th. And then there were additional members present at the December 18th meeting that weren't at the December 5th meeting. So that's what resulted in a positive recommendation to council instead of no motion passing. And then I think I have one more slide, please. So really the impact of that is that if a motion to recommend disapproval had passed at either of those P&Z meetings, either the December 5th or the December 8th meeting, then what that would have caused would be that a supermajority of the city council would have to vote in favor of amending the plan development in order for the item to be approved. Because a motion for disapproval was not passed at either of those meetings, tonight would only require a simple majority. So 3 out of the 5 of you, which is what typically is required to vote in favor of amending the plan development in order for the item to be considered approved. If the item passes tonight by less than a supermajority, you could, but you're not required to request the item to be reconsidered again by the Planning and Zoning Commission between now and your second reading. If you have any concerns about what happened with P&Z and you just want to in one of Kathy and my favorite phrase, have the avoidance of doubt. But again, the only impact of it would still come to council. You would still vote on it. It would just be rather whether it required a supermajority or a simple majority to move forward for approval. So I apologize for the confusion around the item. And I know that's not typical for us to send something back to P&Z, but because we didn't have an actual motion made, I felt like it was important that we send it back to P&Z and actually get a recommendation to you tonight in accordance with the code that's been adopted.
Clears it up.
I hope it helps a little bit.
Mr. Chandler.
Yes, I believe this is the last presentation of the year at council. So great, great context, Bren. Thank you very much for that. And so here's the property. And of course, this is part of the Valley Ranch, the commercial part of the original 2005 plan development zoning ordinance. So on the right, you can see that this lot is at the corner of Dubose and FM 93. And so looking towards the residential part of the neighborhood, you can see the site from FM 93, and then also the view from Dubose. And property to the east, and looking at these clockwise, adjacent property to the south, to the west, and to the north. So a little bit of background, and I misspoke. It was actually a 2004 ordinance, but this is an amendment to the Plan Development Neighborhood Service Ordinance 2004-3970. And so this amendment would allow, if approved, for minor vehicle servicing. That use, which is not allowed by right, and neighborhood service is not allowed within the 2004 plan development ordinance, but if approved, would have to comply with section 5.3.23. And those regulations that you see there, A through K, that include servicing of spark plugs, batteries, radiator cleaning and flushing, tire work, belt replacement, minor servicing of carburetors, quick oil and filter changes, other servicing of hoses, essentially, yes, and certainly no body work. And so this is a plat, but also just to show you that in terms of what TxDOT has worked with the developer and the property owner to this point for access along FM 93, there are 2 different access points, And one of the conditions would be to have a shared cross access along FM 93 so that lot 1, which is subject to tonight's review and approval, the FM 93 access would be to the east with a future driveway, future development. So there wouldn't be a driveway on each of these lots. And so looking at this a little closer at the plat, the lot 1, block 1, and really what is circled down adjacent to the single family development is that you have 2 easements, and I believe to both of those total, I think 25 feet. I'm unable to see that. My memory escapes me, but there are 2 easements so that ultimately, in addition to the setback, building needs to be away from those easements. Shown on the screen here, conceptual. So this is not a binding site plan at this stage, but just an example of what it could look like. And once again, you see the shared cross access to the east. On the right is an elevation, conceptual elevation provided by the applicant of what it would look like. And Mr. Jim Howe has a follow-up presentation after the staff presentation to give a little more detail from a representative of the owner's perspective on what it would look like and how this use would function. Looking at the comprehensive plan, this area is shown as residential and neighborhood service. The PD amendment is consistent with that plan by staff's interpretation. Thoroughfare plan identifies FM 93 as a major arterial. And of course, that's a TxDOT highway. The trails master plan does require a minimum of a 6-inch sidewalk along FM 93. And so that would be required. And that is consistent with what other development to the east has installed. Mobility master plan, mitigation to be determined. And essentially these are TxDOT questions because it's a TxDOT roadway. Just to look at, once again, the trip generation. If you look at minor vehicle servicing, average daily trips just for an average size building, 2,300 square feet, 160 trips. Compare that to a gas station, which you all recall was proposed previously. A gas station with 8 pumps has an average daily trip count of 2,000 trips. Of course, not all of those trips are destination trips of, most people stop for gas on their way somewhere, but either way, you can just see the difference and significant difference in trip generation for this use versus what was proposed last time. And also not on this chart, but 16 detached single family homes would also generate about the same number of trips as this minor vehicle servicing use. So notice was printed in the newspaper on November 22nd, and they were mailed to 44 property owners. And 2 were sent in favor, representing 4 properties, and that is the applicant. So just to be completely transparent, 6 were sent in opposition, representing 7 properties, and you can see the Ds representing those properties on the map here. There are also 4 outside of the notification boundary, which all those responses should be in your packet. And of course, those 4 don't count towards the potential protest calculation of if 20% of that area is represented by opposition responses by those property owners, would also trigger a supermajority. But as of December 14th, that percentage shown on here of all the disapprovals is at just over 14%. So under the 20% that would trigger a supermajority. Our development review committee reviewed this on November 20th. And so the Planning and Zoning Commission, just to summarize what Bren presented just a minute ago, that at the December 5th meeting, P&Z, there was a motion made to recommend approval, but that motion failed and no other motion was made. So it came back to P and Z on December 18th, just this past Monday. And an additional condition was part of that motion, and that is to screen where vehicles waiting for repair, and there are limitations on how long they can wait to be repaired, but that there's an 8-foot fence around that. And so presumably that additional condition made the difference for some of them to change their mind from the previous motion. So that passed by a 5-1 vote. Staff recommends approval of the amendment subject to the following conditions, and that all other conditions in the ordinance apply. The minor vehicle servicing is allowed subject to the 5.323 UDC provisions. Parking of non-operable vehicles or vehicles waiting for repair are limited to 72 hours. All of these conditions are agreed upon by the property owner and by the business owner. I've highlighted number 4 because this is the additional condition recommended for approval by planning and zoning, that parking of damaged or non-operable vehicles or vehicles waiting for repair shall be screened from public view with an 8-foot high solid fence, minimum of 6-foot sidewalk along FM 93, but also a 4-foot sidewalk on DuBose. Screening and buffering required to the south. It can consist of walls, fencing, vegetative screening, lighting in compliance with our section in the UDC 718 to prevent glare or light trespass. Minimum of 20-foot wide cross-access easement along FM 93 frontage. Building articulation to avoid the box look with at least 2 building materials. And while we can't regulate what those materials are, we can require that multiple exterior materials are included. 10, staff review the site plan and elevations in conjunction with the building permit. And then lastly, subdivision plat to be recorded prior to the building permit. And that's all that I have. And I understand that Mr. Howe has some slides that he'd like to present as well, but happy to answer any questions now or later.
Else, anything for Mr. Chandler? Nope. All right. Pardon?
But I might have after I hear the Mr. House presentation.
All right, this item is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. We ask you step to the podium or raise your hand on the virtual platform. How many folks do we have that are wanting to speak tonight? Okay. That's good. If there was 10 of you, I'd ask for you to get somebody in the batter's box, but that's okay. Yes, ma'am, you're up. Pardon? We can do whoever. I mean, it's a public hearing, so we can go in any order that we want to.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Erica Moore. My husband and I live in Valley Ranch. Just kind of get to the point, but we are a dual family firefighter family. Have been in many situations of hazardous automotive situations. I have also previously for 7 years been a service manager for an automotive shop, in which several instances could have ended up way worse. We do have 5 children. Having this shop put less than 2 football fields away from our home is concerning. There are a lot of risk factors that the developer didn't mention. And I just feel like y'all should vote in favor of no. And just consider the risk versus the benefits, because to us and the residents, we feel that the risk outweigh the benefits. So.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yep.
Good evening. I think you know me. We've been up here so often. Cindy Warren, resident of Valley Ranch. And yes, we've been up here for the last year. I don't want to repeat all the information that we have shared previously. I do know for a fact that more than 3 Valley Ranch residents were eager and ready, but due to holiday obligations are unable to attend this evening. So I truly encourage you to have a valid and real hearing for them on January 4th in all fairness. I've emailed most of you with my personal concerns or our personal concerns as to what has transpired over the week. I understand we're coming in front of the city council today, knowing that the zoning hearing held on the 5th was actually in favor of the Valley Ranch residents. Okay, at no point in time was there clear communication that our case would be heard again on the 18th. Therefore, even I, as active as I am in this proposal, was not aware of the 18th hearing until after it took place. Okay. We didn't have an opportunity to speak to the other P and Z members because we didn't know it was, number one, open to the public, or number two, that it was going to actually cover our subdivision. Okay. My concerns are truly safety. Okay. I actually have a home on the fence line near this property. I don't feel safe or secure with a 8-foot fence with unoccupied vehicles up to 72 hours. Okay, is that 1 vehicle? Is that 5 vehicles? Is that 15 vehicles? How many vehicles are they allowed to have unattended up to 72 hours? Okay, I don't trust that. Who's going to police the security and the safety of our subdivision? We are fortunate enough to live in a gated community. Okay, the traffic pattern, I get that our entrance into Valley Ranch from Du Bois is narrow. That's never going to change. If we were going to bring up the fact that we were up against a convenience store last December and then again in June and whatever all that was. Yeah, the traffic doesn't compare, but the hazardous conditions are still there. The school is still there with the bus stops. Safety and an 8-foot fence we didn't even have an opportunity to defend that or to talk about it. So I really feel that we have been blindsided by the meeting on the 18th. And I asked you to truly take that into consideration because, as you know, from our experience over the last year, the Valley Ranch residents, number one, are very passionate about keeping our subdivision and the adjacent land on 93 neighborhood services. We welcome that. We know that the dentist office that is almost probably ready to open is something we would continue to welcome, not a minor auto repair. And what will that look like in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years? Okay, so thank you for your time. And I believe Stacy wants to speak, but are you going to do it? Okay, sorry. She just had surgery.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Are you waiting? Okay, no. Ms. Chow, if you would like.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, council members and staff. I'm Jim Howe and I'm here today representing the property owner. And I'm pleased, very pleased to inform you that the property owner, the proposed vehicle servicing business owner, and the contractor they're all local. So this is not an absentee out of town project with an absentee owner. With me today is Mr. Kenny Ware, who's the owner of the business. Kenny's right here. Just raise your, yeah. And he'll be pleased to address any questions you may have of him. First, I want to thank you for this opportunity to be here this evening and to make this presentation. And I want to thank the city staff for an excellent job and an excellent, straightforward presentation. As has been said, we're asking for an amendment to the vehicle servicing for vehicle servicing minor at this location. Has been pointed out, a number of the points, I may have a little duplication here, but there'll be 100% masonry building. Service will be inside an air-conditioned building. And service will be of current market cars and pickups, no trucks, no body work. Hours are 7 to 6, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. No night work, no weekend work. Outside lighting will be security only. There won't be a lot of glare. There won't be a lot of lights or activity after 6 p.m. in the evening. Outside storage display, not permitted. There won't be any outside storage that is not within the screened area. The screened area, as was mentioned, is the business owner volunteered to increase the height of the fence to 8 feet. It exceeds the city's buffer code. And parking for vehicles awaiting parts, that's really what it is. And Kenny can address it more than I, but this is not a lot of cars. It's an occasional car that they just don't have the part for. And they'll either be stored inside or within the screened area. This is what it is not. It is not a building with a bunch of doors standing open all day with a lot of noise. That's not what it is. It's not a building with a display of items for sale, like a rack of tires, things like that. This is what it is not. So this is what it is. This is a building that looks like an office building, and in fact could easily be converted to an office building. Unless there's signage, the average person driving by would have no idea that this is a building for vehicle maintenance service minor. You can see here, this is looking down into the building. The bays are all inside. There's actually one door, an entrance door, and then an exit door that's out the back, with a nice, attractive waiting area. And this is what it is in the evening, nighttime friendly. Looking at FM 93 to the north of this property, the drive entrances are TxDOT approved. It meets their management regulations. There are 2 driveways that will access this portion, the eastern portion of the commercial area. There'll be another driveway that accesses from Dubose Road. And there's a cross-access TxDOT compliant easement or driveway that will connect all 5 lots internally. So a vehicle could move from one lot to the other without going out on FM 93 or Dubose Road. So FM 93 at this location is a 4-lane highway with a center turn lane, continuous center turn lane, and at our site, an acceleration deceleration lane. Let's talk about drainage for just a second. You can see here the red arrows show the flow of stormwater drainage. Flows across the front of the property to Dubose Road and down Dubose Road to an 8-acre detention facility. When this project began in 2004, the engineers created a holistic drainage plan. And that plan included all of the drainage from all of the subdivision, the residential and commercial subdivision. There will be no drainage to residential lots, as the existing 2 drains that go there will be eliminated by construction of the drainage channel that you see on the south edge of these lots. So just a quick comparison of uses. A restaurant might be open from 7 in the morning until 10 at night, 7 days a week, with sometimes heavy traffic at peak hours and liquor sales. Auto parts such as O'Reilly and that type, those companies, they could be open 7 to 9, 7 days a week. Steady traffic. And what I've observed is outside repair in the driveway, batteries replace, things of that nature. This would not happen at the, or even be permitted at our proposal. Funeral home, also heavy traffic at times, 7 days a week. By contrast, this operation, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., 5 days a week, light traffic. 90% of their traffic comes in by appointment. It's not just we're driving by, let's go see if we can have service or something. All work indoors. Non-issues. Traffic is a non-issue in terms of this project or this request. And if this same building were built there as an office building, there wouldn't be any less, and there could be more traffic than what will be generated by this business. Dental office that has a lot of customers coming and going could very well have more traffic than this. Noise, non-issue. All work indoors and no body work. Drainage, just covered that. But in terms of this application, there would be less drainage created than some permitted uses. And once again, 0 through residential. Non-issue. Screening is not only code compliant, but it will exceed code. Lighting, less than other permitted uses. No nighttime business. So in summary, this is restricted and it's compatible with permitted uses. In addition to the requirements of the city, there are protective covenants that also that will be filed on the property that have additional restrictions beyond that of the city. P&Z recommended approval, as you've heard. We respectfully request adding vehicle service minor to this one lot in the Valley Ranch Business Park East. Kenny and I will be happy to address any questions that you may have. Thank you again for this opportunity.
I see that the fencing is the cast concrete solid, it's solid fencing. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's not chain link fencing with.
No. This
with
is
the
solid.
windscreen. I mean, it will be a masonry fence.
Actually, Mr. Ware can address it, but what he has proposed is fencing that's similar to that surrounds Valley Ranch, with the exception that it would be 8 foot tall and it would have some masonry columns. It'll be an attractive 8 foot fence. Solid.
What's the current fence? I don't recall. Is it?
It's 6 foot fence with
but wooden
wooden yes.
slats, vertical slats.
That's correct. That's
but,
what this
but you
was.
can't see through them, right?
Pardon me?
They abut each other.
Yes, sir.
Right. It's solid screening.
Solid.
Got it. Council, anything else for Mr. Howe?
Mr. Howe, the doors on the bays back there, I assume they're gonna open it up and let the car in and then immediately close it and keep them closed?
Yes,
Unless, just like any other, just like the front door would be, if somebody were walking in, they're gonna walk in and close behind.
that's correct.
Type of vehicle that y'all will be working on? Is it European vehicles, American made?
I'll let Kenny answer that.
My name's Kenny Ware. We live in here in Temple. So the majority of our business now is European cars. We're looking at 95% European. This particular market here, I think we'll probably see more of a 75-25 split on American cars versus European, but we're definitely geared towards European clean facilities, you know, kind of the white glove facility. All my guys are super clean, wear gloves, working on cars. So just a different kind of facility. Like I said, the P&Z meeting, we're more of a dealership competitor rather than the shop on the corner, you know, downtown or something that's greasy and dirty. That's not our philosophy. We're competing against the dealers.
This franchise?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Do you have another?
I have one in
location?
Killeen. Yes, ma'am.
We have talked a little bit around outside material. I think it said masonry and articulation and things like that. And you're committed to that?
The privacy fence
plan?
with the stone columns, 8 foot. Yes, sir.
No, I'm talking about the actual building itself.
The building, yes, it will be masonry. They require 2, but this one actually will have 3 different types of masonry material on it.
I've seen the dental office there. It'll be somewhat like that.
Similar, but not as much as the hardy plank. It'll be more of a, we're looking at some hardy plank on the top, but a lot of it's going to be a stucco type with, if you saw the picture, you have the picture in there, stone columns and then stucco.
Yeah. Okay. Council, anything else? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Yes, ma'am. Yes, we'll bring you a microphone. We can hear you in here, but we need the microphone to pick you up on the recording.
AC Hodak. I live in Temple and Valley Ranch. And just a couple of things regarding the P&Z mess that happened. I would just say that even if public comments were available at the first of the meeting, even though we weren't aware it was even taking place, we wouldn't have been able to address anything because nothing had been presented at that point that we even knew about. Everything we thought was decided at the previous meeting. So it would have been silly of us to try to make a comment on something we weren't even aware that's happening. So I think for that reason alone, you know, I think the city should be transparent, and this didn't happen with transparency. And so that's that. On this actual location, I would just say that everything that's been presented is just hypothetical. If you approve this, there's nothing that you've been presented that says this is what it's going to be. You know, he's talked about what types of material could be used and what it may look like. Well, he could tell you he's going to build the Taj Mahal, and you approve this and you don't know what it's going to be. You know, another, I'm not sure why we would need all of this screening. If there's not going to be storage, we don't need screening. Who's going to monitor? Is the city going to come monitor how long the vehicles are staying there and whether they're broken or they're just there because they haven't been picked up and he's waiting to his 30 days to file a mechanics lien against it? Who's going to monitor this? You know, I think that the developer was talking about how there's an acceleration and deceleration zone. And I explained this at the first P&Z meeting. TxDOT, when they redid 93, they did not mark the acceleration or deceleration lane. It's 2 lanes one way, a center lane, and 2 lanes the other way. And so to keep representing that is just not true. And I think it just goes to say, you know, anybody can come up here and tell you anything. That doesn't make it true. That doesn't mean that's what's actually going to happen there. It sounds great, but it's not what's there. again, he says that what vehicles he's going to work on. He could sell this building 2 years from now. You don't know what the next guy's going to work on. You don't know, is he going to close the doors and provide indoor air conditioning for his employees? Or is he going to leave the doors wide open? Who's going to police that? The developer saying he's going to put restrictions on the property. We haven't seen those. Those aren't filed. So I think, we're just leaving a lot up to somebody saying they're going to do something, and, who's going to make sure all of that happens? And that's all I have. Thank you.
Chandler, I realize I'm putting you on the spot here. Can you address some of Ms. Hoddick's concerns regarding, he's saying he's doing these things, but there's no commitment to do those things, et cetera?
Sure, and great questions. A number of those will be addressed with the conditions. The fact that this is a planned development does allow for those conditions that are, if council approves this, those are enforceable. To your point about the 72 hours, that is a great point. We are not going to be, monitoring or checking that, but it's based on often be complaint. If for some reason there's a car that's been there a week and a neighbor is concerned about that, our code compliance folks would go out, work with the property owner and ensure compliance. So while we're not going to monitor, it's still enforceable. And that goes for all of that, with the exception of the masonry commitment. As I mentioned in my presentation, we can no longer regulate exterior materials. We can require, council can require that there are multiple exterior materials. However, what they have presented, yes, it's a concept, but it would be consistent or similar in terms of quality to the dental practice. Though that's a reflection of the restrictive covenants that Mr. Howe mentioned. Of course, we can't enforce that, but in terms of what they are publicly saying they're going to do, yes, a lot of that we can enforce, and the rest is really just the reputation of the business owner and the developer. So. Well, there's a single door. So it's not, that addresses
Ma'am,
the concern.
Let Mr. Chandler finish. This isn't really a conversation. He's answering your questions.
So we haven't gotten down in the weeds in terms of recommending that kind of condition, that the door is going to have to be closed as soon as a vehicle enters the building. But the design is going to address that by just having a single door, unlike the example Mr. Howe showed where it had 6 bay doors that stay open, which we see throughout town. So this is clearly a different business model, different practice. The design would address a lot of that. But in terms of a new owner coming in, they would still be subject to the same conditions that are on the list, that if council approves this, and if he were to sell it, still subject to those same conditions. And if compliance or non-compliance is confirmed, then our code compliance staff will address that and go through that process.
It's also conditioned space, right?
Right.
That's expensive to leave the door open.
Yes, very, very true. So yes.
Question, Mr. Howe, will the entrance to the parking lot, to the parking area, be locked? Will it have a gate that comes across, or will that remain open? Sort of to Mrs. Warren's point.
I believe that would remain open as a requirement for cross-access by TxDOT.
I didn't think about that. That makes sense.
I think so.
Yeah. So it would be open on both ends.
That's correct.
Yeah. And so the screening would then face 93.
That's correct.
And behind the building?
I'm sorry, what's the question about?
behind the building to the south. So to the north of the building is 93,
Mhm.
and there'll be fencing behind the building.
Yeah, so there would be fencing from both sides of the building. There would be gates on the sides of the building and fencing all the way around the back, a bullpen type setup, if you will. Those would be lock secure gates for sure.
What about the cross access for traffic?
That would
Mr.
not-
Howe?
That would not be gated.
No.
Okay, all right, yeah, that was my question.
Okay. Could you,
But there will be in the bullpen scenario, right? There will be gates that are closed and locked each night. And then the cross access is happening somewhere else, not through the parking lot where your customers' cars are sitting out overnight.
no, sir, the cross access easement is in the front.
Got it.
of the building.
Okay, just want to make that clear.
I'd like for Mr. Ware to make a point, and I don't know what the answer is, but about the average time that a car that would be awaiting service.
Right. Our current turnaround on cars right now is roughly a day and a half, worst case, 2 days. We have suppliers all around. Parts are 2 or 3 times a day. We're getting deliveries and, depending on the amount of cars coming in, the technician load that we have, cars turn around quick. We don't want them to sit there. We want to get them out of there. I mean, that's how we pay our rent, we
Right.
got to get them in and out.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll just say,
Dan?
Okay.
No, Dan. Dan,
Okay.
if you're going to speak, come to the microphone, please.
With any kind of bullpen,
State your name.
I'm Dan Kaser in Temple resident. They have the car thieves are gonna be monitoring that. An 8-foot fence, hell, they can get over that sucker and these people paid a lot of money to live in Valley Range. They've hawked their whole future, paying it off. And, this just gonna invite crime. That bullpen, I've seen, it doesn't matter how nice they make it, and he can come in and put sheet metal on that building because, we got it overturned where they can't, force you to put rock. And it's just like she said, yeah, it's a real concern what's going to happen in the future because it's going to go down. But the main thing is, they'll draw cars in the bullpen are going to draw in a heck of a lot more people than people breaking into a liquor store. And I just think that the residents deserve to be heard.
And that's why we're here. Yes, ma'am.
Samantha Kaser. The school bus stop was brought up. Is there a way to see where it is in relation to the plan development?
It's down a ways.
And can we see it with the drainage map?
Yeah, I think it's for Mr. Howes.
This one?
So the school bus stop is on DeBose Road and sorry, can we look at the drainage map one more time? So is that drainage along DeBose Road? Is anyone? Yes. So if there's a school bus stop there and there's drainage from automotive servicing, even if it's minor repairs, people coming in for oil changes, they might have oil leaks on the way in. There can be other drippages. Even if inside of the facility, it's very clean, there's no telling what's coming onto the lot. And I think that there's some concerns that when kids are dropped off, if there's been a heavy rainstorm recently, or even a couple of moderate ones recently, then they're playing in that water, then there's no telling what they're going to be exposed to. There was also the specification that it would not be operating at nighttime because it would close at 6. But like right now, it's getting dark 5:30 or thereabouts. So if there's no plan to shut down at sundown, then there's no guarantee that it'll not be operating at night. And I know that there are some environmental requirements around the building, but has there been any kind of assessment of the environmental impact that vehicle servicing would have in this area, close to a residential area, where the drainage is going south of it, affecting whatever property is there, whether that's, I don't know if it's ag or not, but at least my understanding of vehicle servicing is whatever water is draining off is likely to be much less clean than it currently is.
There are certain, up here, there are certain requirements that state agencies, I'm assuming there are lots of other requirements around the disposal of chemicals and water runoff and things like that. So all that is that is taken care of at the state level.
Has that already been assessed at the point that they're coming for rezoning, or is it that will be assessed after the zoning is decided?
He would not be able to open his business without all of that being addressed.
Right, so it hasn't been done yet.
That's not something that the city takes care of.
Right,
That's something that that's at the state level.
right. I'm just wondering if it could go into the zoning decision, but if that hasn't been done yet, then it can't go into the zoning decision.
That's not part of the zoning decision process. That's not applicable here.
I would encourage thinking about environmental impact when deciding whether to approve or disapprove, not disapprove, approve or unapprove, dismiss, whatever, zoning concerns. But I realize that that's not a statute at this point and there's nothing that can be done. So I have no further comments or questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak for the first time? Ms. Warren, do you need a second? You're welcome. And we only give 2 bites at the apple, so, all right.
I don't even want this one.
Okay.
All right. Because my other neighbors are not here. Drainage is a nonstop concern on Dubose Drive on both sides. You can tell me you're gonna shift the drainage from coming into my fence line or the neighbors adjacent to this development. If we route it to Dubose Drive and then it goes south, that's even more water that those 2 ditches cannot handle. We can go into the bus stop. We can go into the CTCS school traffic that uses us as their roundabout. We could say all of that, okay? My number one concern, and I could say it till I was blue in the face, is the safety and security of our homes. And I truly do not believe that if you are going to have vehicles of this caliber on property at night, that you are not opening up our subdivision for additional crime. We've already experienced the break-ins, the car thieves on a repeated basis. I express that to you individually. It will continue and it will get worse. And then what will that truly do to what we take pride in? You know, part of my concern when he showed the inside of the business and how wonderful it was, I just really kind of sat back and went, well, let me bring you into my home and show you how beautiful that is, because nobody cares about that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Erica Moore. The last point that I have is the shop opening at 7 a.m. My teenagers go to Belton High School. They leave and go to the bus stop at 7:40. Therefore, they are on that narrow DeBose Road, waiting for a bus. The traffic that this shop is gonna bring at 7 a.m. when we already have the CTC doing a roundabout in that area and the traffic that's going through there, I fear my kids' safety waiting at that bus stop. I don't want to get a call when I'm in Killeen at 7 in the morning working that my child was hit by a car. Granted, yes, they're teenagers, but that is a risk. Adding more traffic to an already narrow street. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anybody on the digital platform? Nothing?
I do have a question for Mr. Ware. With that question in mind,
Yeah, we're trying to, I don't mean to be hard to get along with the microphone, but we need to catch the recording for the video.
do you have a lot of walk-in traffic, or do you mostly take appointments?
Most of 90% appointments.
Do you have early morning drop-offs?
We have
Or-
some, yes. Most of them will schedule somewhere between 7:30 and 8 for drop off. And then they're there the day in the back in the afternoon. As far as the number of cars, I mean, the traffic counts that we've showed, I don't think it really is a good depiction of what we do. I mean, we're a pretty large facility and clean for independent, and we're doing about 160 cars a month. Spread that over about 25, 26 days of working month. It's not a lot of cars per day. Of course, you do have, person will drop a car off, somebody's with them, so that's 2 cars, but the daily traffic is very light.
Thank you. Anyone else? And still no one on the virtual platform? All right. I will close the public hearing at this time. And council, if there's any further discussion, let's have that. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chandler, I have a question. I just want to make sure on the staff recommendations, it says vehicle servicing must be conducted completely within an enclosed building. I assume by the word enclosed, that means closed door as well. Is that? Or to ensure that the door is closed, doors keep closed, is that? does
I mean,
it have to
that-
be added, or does?
That
enclosed
could
building
be,
include
that could be added. So that's not necessarily part of that standard. It's really just to make sure that they're not doing the parking lot, that it's all within the walls of the building. So if you wanted to ensure that, the door, the overhead door, the bay door, it stays closed, then you can certainly add that as a condition.
I fully realize that they're conditioned and they will, but I want to make sure that that's understood.
Can't, Mr. Ware or Mr. Howe, is there anything in the amendments that says all the servicing is done interior?
I believe it says that they are all the repairs should be done inside the building.
Brian is saying yes, so that's,
Yeah,
so
we can-
Mike, that's in
Yes, on
there.
item A.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No other comments, or council has no other questions. I'll be happy to make a motion to approve this item with all the 11 amendments that are attached.
I'll second it.
Have a motion by Councilmember Long. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Walker. Council, please cast your vote. Item 9 passes 4 votes yes, 1 vote no. Want to thank you all for attending tonight. Merry Christmas to everyone, and we will see you in the new year. Thank you.